So the title of this is How to Win the Baja 500, and it's absolutely not something that we can tell you how to do. We're going to tell you how not to win the Baja 500 by telling you about our race. But we do have, as Steve mentioned, special guest Brandon Sims waiting in the wings to tell you actually how to win the race if you guys want to give that a shot. Or if you're not racing, you just want to know what's involved, then you're about to find out. Not all race wins go as planned. He has some special stories for you guys. When I say special stories, I don't mean something that Chase tells all of his peeps.
Every day.
You know what? So at this race, we went on a pre-run. Everybody was involved. It was pretty awesome. But we have some new Chase-isms from the pre-run, right, Josh?
Yeah, let me get it.
I called you on it with.
Come on me.
What?
Uh-oh, yeah.
Hold on a second. See, he is not doing his job, so I'm gonna get him not doing his job. Hold on.
I can't believe this has turned into a thing, Steve.
I know. So Chase, this
Hold on.
this right here
Your
is awesome because it's the first time I've ever got Josh doing
rare.
something like this.
Very
It's
rare.
always you that I get doing something like this.
All right. Let's
So
see.
what do we have for new Chase-isms?
We're on time but running late. He says it was nerve-wracking.
Nerve-wracking? Not nerve-wracking?
Oh, Kenny, I know all about your butthole from this weekend. And as a way to sustain myself.
Oh, that's right. You were saying that getting a side job is a way to sustain yourself.
Yeah, like at home in bed, you know?
It sounds like what you do during laundry, looking at your underwear.
This is true. You guys are always 5 steps ahead of me. I like that this has become a segment in the show here.
It has, because I enjoy your mastery of the English language, Chase. It's very, very good. I digress.
All right, race, Justin.
I digress. So back to our race. I'd love to make it really short, but it's kind of complicated. So we started 25th. Brandon started 2 spots behind us, which, Brandon, I will tell you, I have to admit this, we were trying to pace ourselves on you. If you didn't pass us, then we might slow down until you did. If you passed us, we were going to pick up the pace. That's what we were planning on doing. So thank you for helping us with our pace.
Did we figure out the pace?
Yeah, I figured out exactly where it needs to be because Brandon passed us and there was nothing I could do about it. We started 25th, made up a lot of spots. We actually passed about 12 people, not physically, but probably 6 physically and 6 that were broke. And then race mile 60, we lost our cooling fans. Both of them shut off and we started having overheating issues. We didn't know at the time what was going on, but we found out that we had a chafed wire in one of the looms that caused that. And so when we lost our fans, we slowed down. Brandon went by us like we were standing still. Thank you very much for the ego boost, Brandon. That was awesome. And we lost a couple other spots before we got to one of our pits at race mile 70 where we hot wired the fans to be on full time. Left there, lost our drink system, didn't have water for a while. Shortly after that, we snapped the threads off of a rear axle stub, and that means that the hub tries to exit the vehicle. So we nursed it by pumping the brakes to hold the hub together to get us to a spot where we could throw an axle on it. Did that. Now we're an hour down at least. And we got stuck in a roadblock or a bottleneck at race mile 178. A lot of people got stuck there. There was 3 or 4 different hills within 1 mile that a lot of guys were stuck at. We were stuck behind a trophy truck that had cropped itself sideways on the course. 30 guys couldn't move it. We were there for 2.5 hours. So we were way out of the race. And then when it got dark, we lost horsepower and found out that when the fans run full time and the temp drops, that the engine runs while racing 120 degrees. And at 120 degrees, the ECM thinks that it's still warming up and it won't give it boost. So it doesn't want you to hurt the motor when it's too cold and run it floored. So We had no boost. We thought about hot wiring the fans to where we could turn them on and off with a wire inside the car as we're driving. But one other thing failed, and that was a digital dash, so we had no way of seeing what the engine temp was. So we decided that we wouldn't know if it was cold with no power or overheating with no power, so what do we do with the wire? And we were already 4 or 5 hours behind, so we called it. That was pretty much our crappy race. Baja won. We did not stand a chance with the way the dominoes fell in this race. So, as the title of this video tells you, that is how not to win the Baja 500. We can definitely, we're experts at that one, that's for sure. Steve.
Justin, it sounds like having a chafed wire is not a good thing.
Get it? Chafed wire? Okay.
Was that chased wire?
Yes, exactly.
You don't want a chased wire.
I told
As
them
opposed
to
to
get Tony's
chafed
wiring
wire.
Other
The
than-
positive thing, I do have a positive. The biggest thing that we learned out of this race is, at least for the first 50 miles of the race, we were able to keep Brandon behind us by at least a few seconds. That's the best we could actually do.
Got you, Brandon.
Yeah, I don't think we could have lasted any longer if we tried, but at least we pulled 50 miles of that. And of course, Brandon Sims won the 500, and 2 chases left. We have Brandon Sims, Baja 500 winner, 2021. Everybody needs to give him mad respect for this one because it's a big deal. So I get to sit down and we get to chat it up. So, Brandon, how to win the Baja 500? I don't think you could say that in one. That's a loaded question that you cannot ever say in one sentence, right? How about we start with your race report? Exactly how did it go for you and what did you run into?
I ran into quite a few issues, not quite as many as you. It definitely wasn't perfect, there's no doubt. I mean, to have a perfect Baja 500 is extremely difficult. Justin here sounds like he had quite a bit of issues. Obviously, he's got a newer car that he's still working bugs out of, and that takes some time, unfortunately. The pace that we are running nowadays is extreme. I feel like at this Baja 500, it was a little bit different than normal. Seems like quite a few Best in Desert guys went down in this race, and I think the pace in Best in Desert has changed in the last few years exponentially. I mean, our pace is so fast that you can't have one issue in a Best in Desert race and plan on winning it. So I know that...
Let me interrupt that. So knowing that we had a bunch of guys coming down from Best in Desert, you had Phil Blurton and
Austin
Weiland, a few others. So obviously you knew the pace at the 500 was going to go up.
Yes,
and,
no
and
doubt.
They're going to run pin. They're not going to worry about saving the car. Was that a thought prior to the race for you?
Yeah, that was my thought. I'm not going for any kind of points in either Best in the Desert and or score. I'm kind of just picking and choosing the races, doing the big ones, and obviously going into this one, I was going for a win. I didn't really care for anything else. I wasn't going for a finish. It's not a bucket list race for me. I just wanted to go down for a win.
Your mentality was send it or forget it.
Yeah, and then I didn't get the best draw. I mean, I think I drew win the draw. It was second to last, but I think we had a couple people enter at the last minute. I think there was like 30, maybe 31 entries total.
31, yeah.
So we were a couple from starting last in our class. I've started at the front of the class. I've started in the back of the class now, and I think there's advantages to both. Starting in the front of the class, I know that you have issues running into traffic in front of you, whether it's 10 cars, slower trophy trucks that may be having issues. They still create a lot of dust. They take up the whole course because they're wide. It's not easy for them to get off the course. So I know there's struggles starting in the front or the back of the class. Now, the sweet part about starting in the back of the class is not a lot of people are paying attention to a lot of the teams in the back. I'm able to sneak up and work my way through traffic as their pit crews are leaving to go chase their car down. So
the guys that are the top 10, their team is leaving that pit, and they may not be counting you as you go through on your time, so they don't know what the split is, and they might think that they're ahead, but meanwhile you're ahead on time.
Most definitely, and especially being down in Baja with limited service, you can't really follow the trackers unless you have a ton of chase teams, which our class, the UTV class is grown as far as the money it costs to do it and what it takes to have a successful team. We don't have a ton of chase trucks. Most teams don't have a ton. I know trophy trucks, the big teams down there, I mean, they have a pit set up, and they don't have to be mobile pits.
Four or five pits.
Exactly. Yeah. So that pit's there for one job and they don't have to move again. So most UTV teams, their chase trucks are picking up and they are going to another pit. So it's hard for them to watch everybody come through and take time. So, and there's limited service, especially once you leave Ensenada and go east. You know, the service is pretty much non-existent.
Steve, did you have a time question?
Yes, it sounds like you prefer to start in the back. All right, from what you're just saying, you prefer the back door.
You just made Chase happy.
Yeah, exactly. No, it sounds like you like the back better than being in the front.
It has advantages for me for sure. I mean, even at Silver State, which is the prior race to this, we had an issue where we started 20-something and still was able to work our way up to the front. So there is advantages for sure. Running up front in clean air is sure nice, though. There's no doubt.
I was just about to ask you about your co-driver, but he actually just jumped on. So
there's an expert from running from the back, Skylar Howell, on the line. Skylar, what's going on, brother? Talk us through being in the passenger seat, winning the race.
Well, we went down with not a lot of time. We went down Wednesday and really only had Thursday and Friday to clear on. Brandon was sick. Waking up on Thursday morning, so...
We didn't hear about that one yet.
That's coming, don't worry. We haven't even gotten to the race part yet.
We lost the whole morning, so we did as much homework as we could to get out there and win. But there were still a few unknowns when we were out there, and just tried to do as best we could, and it paid off.
Hey, Skylar. I got a question for you because Brandon's going to give us the race report. My question is, how is it navigating for Brandon? And what I mean by that, I'm looking for dirt. Does he talk? Does he not? Does he listen to you? Does he cuss at you and tell you to screw off? I mean, what's he like with you in the right seat?
So he actually, I've never told him this, so he has no idea.
Whoa.
He goes through mood swings.
Do what?
Mood swings.
Oh, cool.
Times where he'll be, in a really good mood. There's times when people piss him off. People get in our way, and we have to hit there, multiple times, and they won't get out of the way, and then he's pissed for, at least a good 10, 15 miles.
So my mood swings aren't towards him; it's towards the other people in traffic.
Yeah, but he's the one.
Sims is looking for a new driver.
You're bouncing it off of him. He's like, "It's okay, Brandon. Don't worry about it."
I'm flipping people off through my windshield. If I could get my harnesses off quicker, I would be reaching through and grabbing some of the cars in front of me.
Are you a cusser on the radio or just like?
No, I'm not a cusser on the radio. I'm a cusser at the people in front of me that I'm really pissed off at that moment.
I'm sorry. I mean, like on the intercom, are you just going off?
Only a couple times. I mean, and I have to be pretty frustrated. It was once.
Mother shizzy.
Oh no, we're using the real words. But it was only once during this race, or twice during this race, and once during Silver State. They're very, very good spots that I know of exactly, and I know he knows exactly which ones they are.
I think he needs a Snickers.
There are certain moments where it just comes out, and I get frustrated because of that. It's not necessarily that Skylar's, doing a bad job co-driving or anything. It's always other traffic that I have issues with, and it's lack of experience on their part, I think.
Or refusal to get out of the way.
Yes.
Or the lack of knowledge on how to do that.
Yes.
Right. Skylar, go ahead.
So there's times where in the race where, as a navigator, you really have to try to save yourself because if you're talking for 12 hours and 15 minutes, that's a ridiculously long time to sit there.
And he likes to talk a lot.
And ruts and washouts and aligns and everything that goes on with Baja. So you try to save yourself, but when you get in traffic, you have to call everything, right? You can't miss anything. So then halfway through the race, I get tired. I start to lose thoughts, and my mind starts drifting. And so I'll start calling things maybe a little last minute where I'm normally calling way before. And those are times in the race where Brain's like, they call it, and I'm like, oh shit, I'm sorry, dude. Totally, your mind gets tired.
So I got two things on that one too. So if Jeff misses a corner, then I count. That's one, and two. And our joke is if he misses three, then he has to get out. That's it, out of the car. And the other one too is if he talks too much, then it drones,
right?
Or it becomes the background music in your head, and you don't realize that he's saying rights and lefts. like let's say halfway through the race or 3/4 of the way through the race, especially when it gets dark, and then you're actually, as a driver, not even listening to rights and lefts, and then he tells you something super important like watch out for this right, and you never listen to it and miss it because you don't think about it anymore. It just becomes the background.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I do the exact same thing. Now, the pace is so fast that it takes a lot, and some of the corners are happening so fast. It's really tricky. Now, what I started doing in this race towards, I'd say, after the middle, I actually started reading them back to myself as he was listening. And I would hope that he would correct me if I said something wrong. You know, we use a kind of a rally note system that he's learned from Erica, some other. He goes and he's not very shy. He really likes to talk to people, which is weird. So
Skyler,
he'll go talk.
Figure.
I think at the Mint last year, he actually went up and talked to Luke McMillan's co-driver for a while, and probably learned a lot from him as well. You know, we use a rally style note system 1 through 5. And we're continuing to expand on that as we race and get more comfortable with each other. And I let him know what's important to me as far as being a driver and what's important to what I need to know. And what we've really done a lot this race compared to a lot of the other races, being able to pre-run, because I mean we don't get to pre-run a lot of the other races. We'll come to, in my opinion, it's a crest or something that you can't see over the top of. And in a best in desert race, most likely you're going to check up because you don't know what's on the other side. Now, being able to pre-run something like this, we're able to, and this was something we really worked on, was what's on the other side of the crest. I mean, I've got a crest coming.
Right 20 or
yes,
something.
if it's a straight, I need to know. I'm not going to check up. And if we can jump it, you know, or go fast enough over it where I don't need to check up, I'm going to utilize that. Or if it's going to be a left 2, left 5, you know, if it's a left 5, I'm setting up for it before the crest, so that way I'm ready for it. If it's a left 2, I need to check up, left 1, whatever it's going to be, I need to check up and be ready for that. So we worked on that a lot for this kind of race, and it makes it really helps that he's not shy to go talk to people and learn. I mean, it's super awesome that he's into it.
Skyler, how many mistakes did Brandon make?
I think we only honestly had one oh shit moment. I think there was only one oh shit moment in this whole race.
What was that moment?
And it wasn't, I don't even think it was a Skyler fault. It was a come over a crest, and there was a rain rut on the other side, and it was we didn't know that was part of the pre-run that we didn't do. We would have marked it if so. We came over and we hit a rain rut pretty good on the passenger side, and I went, oh shit, you know.
It was like one of those, I hope the corner's still on the car?
I was like, was that marked? And he's like, well, no. So yeah, I mean, that was one of our oh shit moments. The corners we were pretty dialed on the corners. I don't think we really had any oh shit moments on any of the corners.
Hey, Skyler, before we cut you off, because I'm going to cut you off, is there anything you want to add to how to win the 500?
The pace right now is so fast.
Go fast, take chances.
I mean, even, you know, I'd say years ago you could break apart and fix it and still be in contention for the win, right? Now you can't break. You cannot break, or you lost your shot at winning. So just keeping the car together and just, you know, navigating on point and making sure you hit all the BCPs are on point in your speed zone. It all adds up.
Before we let you go here, Skyler, we have some fans for you. Alex Rubio, #1 navigator in the world. Tyler Walker would like to elaborate that not only does he get a little mood swingy when he's making passes, but when he's hungry.
That's where the snicker can't comment.
And then we want to know, does his pace change when the mood changes?
A little bit. From time to time, I do have to remind him sometimes that, hey, you slow down. He's like, oh yeah, I did actually. I'll pick it back up.
Awesome. All right,
You guys both got a congrats from the crew at Method Race Wheels and Tenzer Tire.
Oh yeah, get some of that. Shout out to Tenzer and Method.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Skyler. So on the moody thing, do you slow down when you're angry, or do you
No.
speed up when you're angry?
Definitely speed up.
You drive angry for sure.
Yes, definitely. It's an adrenaline rush push, and it definitely makes me drive faster. And unfortunately, it's usually traffic that causes me that. So it's an unfortunate side effect for the traffic in front of me that I'm going to get moody, and I'm going to use my bumper. And it's unfortunate. I mean, we ran into this issue at this race actually, where I bumped a guy 3 times, which was excessive for me. I don't prefer to bump. I don't want to tear up my car. I don't want to tear up somebody else's car. I'm already ahead of them on time. They should just get out of the way. I won't bump them, and then I'll get far enough in front of them. My dust won't affect them anymore at that point, and then they can continue on racing. This time I had an issue towards the beginning of the race. I was trying to get some positions because I didn't want to have issues in the bottlenecks like you ran into, and I know that's a side effect of starting in the back. Is I have to work my way up to get to the bottleneck issues because they're inevitable in Baja almost. So starting up front, you don't necessarily have that happen as much in my experience. So I was trying to work my way through the traffic as fast as possible at the beginning, and I actually found somebody that was not moving out of my way. I bumped him 3 times, hit him pretty good once, really good, and he ended up he was jackrabbiting me. He caught up to a gentleman in front of him and went to bump him, and it looked like they got tangled up together. The bumpers were stuck together, and I could see them when I went to go by them. They were trying to dislodge each other, or dislodge from each other. And so I had actually made 2 passes right there, and it could have been unavoidable, or it could have been avoidable had the one just got out of the way. Then they could have had their own battle, and then I would have been gone. It would have been a simple solution to something that may have caused an issue for them. I don't really know how it played out for them, but when I went by them, they were stuck together.
So you started 27th or 8th, right?
Yes.
And start the race, it was a sprint to the dirt, floored there, or are you saving the belt?
Oh, no, sprint.
Okay.
It was
and then
pure
speed zone, get into some back and forth in the mountains, and then we get road section where it's a speed zone, and then pretty much as soon as you get off the road, which is like race mile 28, 25, something like that, off the road into the dirt is pretty much turn it on. What happens there?
That's where I started catching the traffic I was just talking about. I'd already made 1 pass before Ojos, and that was due to some of the notes we made. I had a great spot where Skylar and I did a little pre-running, and we actually had a sweet corner that we were able to shave just a couple seconds off, but it was enough to get ahead of the traffic that was in front of us. Once we get past the first speed zone there, you drop off race mile 20 something, I think you said. I have a hard time remembering where we're at, what race mile we're at, so your help is nice. So yeah, we drop off the highway there, and that's where we caught the traffic that we had an incident with, where we were actually bumping them, and finally got around them and ran a fast pace. I saw the helicopter, which I was assuming was over Justin, so I kind of knew where he was at. So
ahead of you.
Yeah, it was ahead of me at that point.
Just saying.
Yes. And so I was seeing us reel in the helicopter, and I knew that means
I didn't want to hear that.
We were getting closer and closer. I don't remember, that was did we get ahead of you before or after that first kind of traffic issue where
through the fence line and all that? It was after that.
Okay.
That was about 45, that bottleneck there. We got around it pretty quick too, because the guys were pointing on where to go.
So there was that was the very first bottleneck at race mile 45, you're saying ish? Okay. So that one I didn't pre-run, well, we pre-ran that section, but didn't know there was going to be a bottleneck there.
It wasn't chewed up.
No. So we got there, and there was traffic, in this first bottleneck, and they were pointing us to go a different direction, which is fine and great. I really appreciate when teams are willing to help you do that. So we went around. The problem is you're following a fence. So they put us on one side of a fence, and the track was on the other side of the fence. So, and you're watching your GPS, and you're actually going away from the track or the course, and you're following this fence line going, man, hopefully there's a gate.
It's not getting better.
It's not getting better. And the last thing you want to do, which I've done before, is go around a bottleneck and get to a point where you're not getting any further, and you're getting further away from the course. And we actually had to turn around before. Then you go sit in a bottleneck, and you're further behind than you actually would have been if you would have just sat there in the first place. So fortunately, there became a break in the fence, and then you start making a beeline straight back to the course. Got back to the course and was able to continue on. We obviously made quite a few passes there.
And then you passed us.
Okay, then we passed Justin. He was very nice enough to let us go by. I mean, at that point, you shouldn't be trying to block. It's not. There's no point.
I will tell you this. I mean, that if somebody comes up on you, they have worked through your dust. They are clearly faster than you. There's no reason to ever try and jackrabbit that off or slow them down. Just get out of the way and let them have at it. They're faster. They proved it.
Well,
it is. It's racers' courtesy. They proved that they're faster. Let them do it.
There's different strategies for every team too. I mean, his strategy may be keep it together at the beginning of the race, turn it on towards the end of the race. I've just seen I have different strategies for different races. Now this race, I wanted to turn it on at the beginning and hopefully back it off towards the end because I wanted to make a lot of passes towards the beginning. So my strategy was hopefully the car stayed together and we made a lot of time up at the beginning. So everybody I caught, I was hoping they got out of the way quickly. Justin was one of the guys that moved right out of the way when we got to him. I promise my dust will be gone pretty quickly after that. You won't be in my dust very long. I'm not going to get in front of you and just slow down.
Highway section at race mile 70 to 80, off at 80, north side of the highway to Go Trail.
That was a super fast, fun section, honestly.
Yeah,
I mean, we just did a small little loop off the highway back down to the goat trail. It was super fast, super fun. Caught a couple guys in there. They let us go right by, which was super cool. So we dropped down the goat trail. It's super rough. I don't remember it being that bad. I mean, there's huge rocks everywhere. It gets super skinny right around the big boulder.
Yeah.
Drop down onto the highway. Get to my first scheduled pit stop right around race mile 105. There's a MX there, Valley T.
Yep.
First scheduled pit stop, pull in there, take I think 20-something gallons of fuel, which is right what we were planning. Everybody checked over the car real quick, no issues with the car, so at that point it's a green light to go. We take off out of there and we're going through a speed zone for, I don't know, another couple miles. And I was very adamant, which I've told everybody about my speed. Make sure to keep that 36, 37. Don't bust that 37 mile an hour speed limit.
It's 37 and a half or 37. It's 37 mile an hour is a speed limit in almost all the speed zones. And if you guys don't know these races, if you speed, you're going to get a penalty for that. And there's trackers inside the car that'll warn you when you're too close. So you were going a mile an hour under it to be safe.
Yeah, I kept it right there. There was no point, 1 mile an hour ain't going to be the difference between a win or a loss, you know, but a speeding penalty could be the difference between a win or a loss. And I was also making sure there's a speed limiter on the, or a speed number on the unit itself. And I was looking at our GPS. And I was also looking at my speedometer on my car. Well, and that speedometer is going to be different because of the tire size. So I knew at 32 miles an hour on the speed limit, the one that I could see really easily was 36 on GPS, which was also 36 on the Stella. I made sure that our GPS speed was matched the speed of the Stella. So I was basically watching mine. If 32 miles an hour is what I kept it at, that kept us at 36.5 miles an hour. So I'm going through the speed zone, going. I got it right at 36 and a half, back and forth. And I'm cruising, and I get bumped. And I'm like, what do I do with this? I mean, I'm not going to go faster, and I'm doing the exact what we're supposed to be doing. So that's kind of frustrating. I got a little frustrated there. As soon as we got out of the speed zone, it was full-on assault, and we were gone. I never saw that person again.
That next section, now you're going to Mike's, and you're going down from Mike's, which is rough.
This is the section we did zero pre-running. I had zero. We stopped our pre-running at 105.
It is rock crawling, rock slipping, cliff, single track, no get-arounds.
The only pre-running we did is basically what Justin told us right there, and that's all we got to hear. I mean, I just asked around, what's it like through here, and not one person said it was awesome, fast, or anything. It was all rough, silt, rocks, cliffs, everything, and so that was our pre-running for that section. And it was exactly what everybody said. It wasn't fast, it wasn't fun. It was a couple sections that were super tight and technical through looked like stuff that never been raced on. I mean, there was bushes, trophy trucks that were probably, barely fitting through. So I mean, that was for 100 miles of that, a couple sections right there before Mike was fast and fun, but other than that, that was about it.
Did you have any issues between 75 and 190, which there was a lot of silt that everybody complained about?
There was 2 more log jams in that area? Okay, so I did get to 2 of those. The first one was, we went through a water crossing, and you're in a sand wash, and it must have been like a silt climb out of the sand wash. And I've been in this exact spot before in one of the other Bajas. I don't remember which one it was, but I do remember getting to that exact spot, going the same direction. We pulled up to that and went, I remember this spot. We took a hard left, we went up the sand wash a couple hundred yards, and you could see people were trying to go over this berm to get back on course, and there was people stuck. They were trying to find ways around, and they were finding ways around, but they were still stuck. So I looked at this one guy, I stopped in the sand wash, which is nice, we can do that, I mean, the buggies, if you're in a sand wash, the last thing you want to do is stop. You want to keep your momentum up. So we stopped, looked up at this guy in a trophy truck, I think it was, and he was stuck. And I said, I just put my hands up, tell me where to go. I'm at your mercy, please tell me the right way. And he pointed right here. I went right up next to him, got up on top of that, looked around, there was a pond, which I did not want to be near a pond. I knew it's going to be soft. So we went around the pond, and got back and then made it around the main bottleneck. And I said, Skyler, where's the course? And he pointed at which way to go, and we beelined it straight back to the course. And we made a bunch of passes there. I don't know exactly how many, but we did make quite a few passes there. There was a lot of people stuck. And I want to say shortly after that, there was another bottleneck. I had one of my teammates, Mike Caffrow's, Jamie Kirkpatrick was actually driving the turbo or the pro forced induction car behind us. He was following us, and I come down this canyon, and I go to look up, and there's another traffic log jam. So at that point, I'm like, shit. So I threw it in reverse, and fortunately on my car, I've still got the Dynamics model, so I've got the screen, and I've got a camera facing backwards. So I just drove out of this canyon in reverse with the camera. I was just watching my screen, backed out of this canyon, turned around, and I do remember Skyler and I, like, we saw something on the left that looked like we could take. So we backed up. I popped my car into 4 low, or I put it in low range. I'm always in 4-wheel drive, so I put it in low range, and we followed this. Jamie actually was pretty good sport. I was in front of him. Mm-hmm. He let me kind of let me go in front of him, and he followed me, and we kind of just went around this traffic jam or log jam, and we went up on this ridge and followed it all the way down. And I was like, Skyler, is there any VCPs over there? Because if there is, we'll go up and we'll drop back down, hit the VCP, turn around on the course, and go back up. But fortunately, there was no VCPs in that area, so we were able to go up around on this ridge, drop down into a sand wash, and then get right back on course and put it back in high range and took off.
Gone.
So that was our bottleneck issues. We really had none. We were fortunate enough to go around them, and we didn't lose much time. Actually, probably gained time. I don't know how other people got through them. It was right place at the right time for us.
You got Eric Kotzane on here, said we did the same, and he's crying laughing.
Yeah.
So did you fuel it at 225 or 250?
So prior to the race, my fuel stop was going to be 270 something.
Okay.
I was going to do 170 something miles on fuel. Now, seeing that we didn't pre-run that section, I didn't know and I knew there was silt.
Yeah.
Right before the race, I started talking to everybody, getting their opinion on our team, and we decided to do like 255 right there at the bottom. And I was like, that's only 150 something miles. We're going to be good. I've got 30 something usable gallons of fuel in my car. Didn't know what our fuel mileage was going to be through that section, so we played it safe. I ran out of fuel multiple times in races, and it really sucks to explain to everybody why you lost the race. So we fueled early. Didn't take as much fuel as we needed, which was nice. We put in, I think, 22 gallons. Didn't fill the car up. Tried to keep it nice and light because we planned on one more pit. There was a lot of silt in that section that you were talking about. So, I mean, with the 4-wheel drive that we have, or the all-wheel drive, whatever you want to call it in our cars, it was really not a big deal. I mean, it still went over the hood, but it didn't really, I mean, it slowed us down, but I was never in fear of getting stuck. We were able just to continue through, power through it.
So at 250, the terrain made a giant change and got where it was fun and it got fast.
Yes.
So how did you like that break?
Honestly, I had 2 chase trucks for this whole race. So I did not want to get stuck between 105 and 250. I did not want to be in the mountains, broken down, in the middle of the night, waiting for help. So I backed it down a little bit, not a lot. I backed it down to a safer pace, and made sure we did the crossover and made it. Once we got fuel at 250, I took an ibuprofen 800. I had a little bit of headache. It was hot up until that point. I think 100-degree ambient air temperatures, and got some water, got some fluids in me, got a little bit of food. I think a couple pieces of jerky. And once you got out of that pit, it was just fast and fun. I mean, so much fun. The car was working so good. Belt temps were cool. The ambient air temperature once we got over to the coast was like 60. So I mean, cars run really good in that kind of weather. We were at sea level. It's really
on the
tough.
beach for some of it.
It's the water was, or the waves were crashing 20 feet from my driver's door. This kind of race is a little bit difficult to do the clutching on our cars. I don't know how the Can-Am guys, if they're able to run a single clutch weight or setup for every race, but I change mine depending on the elevation, depending on how the car is going to run, depending on the weight of the car. So this one's kind of tough because I think the max elevation we hit is somewhere up
about 5,000.
5,000,
yeah.
And we've got sea level. So you're never going to have a perfect car at sea level and a perfect car at Mike Sky.
Yeah.
So I tried to find the middle, and I found a very, very good spot that it was good at sea level. It was good at 6,000. It was never perfect at either. So we got to the sea level and ran a fast pace through sections that we didn't get a pre-run. But like I tell a lot of people, sometimes when I don't pre-run, we go faster because I don't know what the dangers are going to be. I have no idea what we're coming up on. There was a couple spots where they put a VCP in a corner of the very far corner, and there was tire tracks that would cut short. My eyes see those, I follow those, and Skylar would correct me and say there's a VCP in the corner, so I'd actually turn around and go hit the VCP because we're losing seconds instead of minutes at that point. So we'd actually turn around, go hit the VCP, and then at that point when we ran into that issue, I was like, just let me know if there's a VCP in the corner, I'll make sure to go hit it, and then we'll jet out of there. From that point on,
like
it was
250 to like almost 400 is pretty much just pinned. I mean, there's like one 30-mile section in that's a little bit slower, rougher, rocky, whoopy, but then it's back to the coast in Florida, or it's mountain roads down to the highway.
Yeah, and doing the race solo, I mean, it was a nice break. I really enjoyed getting to the coast. It was cool, it was fast. There's nothing more fun than just hauling ass on dirt roads and being on the ocean, and then you're up in these mountain dirt roads that are nice and graded, and they're
rally
fast.
car stuff.
Yeah, very rally car stuff.
So you come out of the rally car stuff, you get down to the highway, and you get over to the beginning of Europan, which is 400. It's like 400 to 430.
Yes, and
how'd that go?
Our last pit was at 405, or right before Europan.
Yeah.
So that was our last pit. Everything, we pulled into that pit, everything was good. It was a fuel and go. I mean, everybody checked over the car, no issues. From that point on, we drove up to Europan, or raced up to Europan there, dropped off the highway. It's a couple miles of fun. It's not crappy yet.
In Europan, tell people about the size of the rain ruts.
Oh, the rain ruts. They're everywhere too. It's not just, I don't remember, we pre-ran that section, but I must not have been paying attention because there's rain ruts everywhere.
They're the size of the car.
Yeah, they'll eat a tire up easy. They'll rip an A-arm off if you're not careful. So if you're too wide or too sharp.
Speaking of ripping tires off of cars in rain ruts, Tony.
I was gonna say, we have somebody with personal
is this the one that during pre-running?
Yes.
Yes.
Tony experienced exactly what a rain rut will do to the front end of a car.
Yes,
we'll show you a little bit more about that later.
It doesn't take much. I mean, it's a simple mistake. Sometimes in Baja, a lot of the terrain's different. So you'll be on one part of the road that's got kind of like a blue groove in it, and it's got tons of traction. It feels like you're on asphalt. Sometimes it feels like you're on marbles. So I mean, when you're trying to judge these corners with a rain rut on the outside, sometimes it's like, man, you've got the corner no problem, and sometimes it pushes
Slide
hard.
right into it. Yeah.
So I mean, you've got to be careful when you're judging that stuff. Sometimes slower is faster through those sections. But yeah, we get into Europan area, and it's about halfway. Let's see here. We're getting around 420-ish. Would that be right? 425-ish.
Tail end of Europan before you get to the highway.
Okay.
So you're talking before or after the highway?
Before the highway.
Yeah, probably that. Probably 420 to 430.
Okay. So around 420. I'm obviously, if anybody follows me, I'm very adamant about doing alignments on my car. I have an alignment shop, or my dad has an alignment shop, and I go there and do all my alignments. I've been doing alignments for years. It's something I'm pretty anal about. So before every race, I go to my shop and do an alignment on it. My steering wheel's always perfect. The car doesn't pull. Everything's, I know when something's going wrong with the car. So we're in between 420-ish. We're almost can see the finish. I mean, that's what it feels like, but you really can't. But you're getting close. And this section is not fun. I mean, it's rough, it's gnarly, you just want a nice cruise to the finish, and this is not a nice cruise to the finish, especially when you just got to enjoy 100 miles of
floored, fun.
Smooth.
Yeah.
Yes. So I'm driving, and I'm hearing a noise. I'm thinking it's in my head. It's not in my head. I'm hearing a noise. I'm feeling it in the steering, and we're going straight on certain sections, and my steering wheel's a little bit off. When my steering wheel's a little bit off, something's bending, something's breaking, something's changing. At this point, I don't know exactly what it is. So we continue. I don't tell Skylar. I keep that kind of stuff to myself for a little bit until it gets to a point where I think it's need to be noted. Now my steering wheel is getting more and more crooked, and to turn, it's a lot more work. I mean, I'm having to actually steer, quite a bit of revolution just to get the car to make small adjustments. Which at this point, I'm thinking in my head, we've got an issue in the steering. I don't know exactly what it is, but we have an issue. In my head, I'm thinking the steering rack is coming unbolted from the mount, and which I was assuming I was going to put on me as a prep issue. But so we're continuing, and we're getting to, I say, like race mile 430-ish. And I go to make a left-hand turn around a corner, and the car continues to go straight, which fortunately there was a nice spot to park, and we weren't going fast because I was trying to keep the car together. just to get to the finish line. So we parked the car there, and I'm telling Skylar to get some bolts out of the tool bag because I'm assuming the steering rack came unbolted.
Bolt the rack back up.
Yes, I was just going to throw a couple bolts in there to get us to the finish line. Well, I hop out of the car, and I look in there. All the bolts are still in the steering rack, and at this point, I drove the car so hard that there is a mount that the steering rack bolts to. I've obviously upgraded my steering rack to the strongest one, which is going to be a shock therapy. And
Shameless plug. Love it.
I no longer have to worry about a steering rack issue, and I've moved a problem somewhere else. And the problem is now that the mount that the steering rack bolts to actually took a blow and
Cracked it up.
It did break it off the chassis. So what I did at that point, I was pretty stressed out because we're 30 miles from the finish. We're in first place on time.
How do you know that, and how far ahead do you know that you are at that moment?
We were getting good radio communication at the last pit that was giving us, relaying to us that we were ahead on time.
What did you think, amount of time? Did you know how much?
It was 5 to 10 minutes. We didn't know exact numbers. We just knew that we were ahead on time. We were third physical behind Jagged and then Blurton, and we were all having super fast paces, but at that point we were started so far back, they started so far up.
You had time on them.
We had time on them. I don't know exact numbers, it was just time. So when you climb out of the car and you're winning on time,
Flustered.
it's quite frustrating. And
This might be one of those mood swing moments.
it was a
right?
mood swing moment, but this one wasn't an anger one. This was depression. So I yell at Skylar, hey, what do we have for ratchet straps? And believe it or not, I had 0 ratchet straps in the car. So I run to the back of the car, and lo and behold, there's
Spare
a
tire?
Y strap holding my tire on the back, my spare tire. So I rip that off, go to the front of the car, and I'm trying to think of an effective way to ratchet strap the steering rack forward to be able to grab onto the chassis. So I figure I finagle a way up around the bumper, go down underneath the grill. I'm trying to rip the grill out so I could get a straight shot. I couldn't get the grill out. It was just stronger than me apparently. So I go under the grill and I grab the steering rack mount, and there happens to be 2 holes in it thankfully, and I was able to wrap the Y strap with 2 hooks and go around that mount and strap it forward. I was just ratchet, got in there, and I could work the steering wheel and it moved the tires. And before that, it didn't move the tires. So at that point, you know, the steering rack was just walking back and forth every time I went to steer.
We got MacGyver over here.
So at that point, you know, that's where, you know, I've been a mechanic or a technician for all my life. That's been my day job for up until last year, working at my dad's shop. So there's certain things that we learned to do, and that was one of them. So we did that. Got back in the car, still had a lot of play, but I knew we only had a little bit to go. Got back in the car, and I ran a pretty quick pace, not race pace, but a quick enough pace to get us back in, get us to the highway section, and finagle our way to the finish somehow. And fortunately, it was a speed zone there for a little bit. It was a little sketchy on it, and then get back to another speed zone as you get close to the finish line. And we crossed the finish line in third at that point. I think third on time too. There was no doubt that we
Burned up a lot of time on the
burned
rack.
up a lot of time. You know, we had to slow the pace and repair the car. It wasn't until Sunday morning on our drive halfway home to Tecate that I started getting text messages when the official results came out that there was quite a bit of penalties out there, and I didn't get one, you know, fortunately, you know. And that made the difference between our finishing position of the third at that point to a first. You know, we got 0 penalties. I was very adamant about hitting every VCP and marking our time, or marking our speed.
So the 2 guys ahead of you got speeding penalties or some penalty of some kind, dropped them back, and then put you in first.
It did. Yeah, it looked like when I went through the penalty bulletin, there was a speeding penalty. I don't know exactly how much or how what they got there, but a VCP as well. Easy to miss. They're not there. There's 200 something VCPs out there, and they get knocked down. There's usually a paint stick with a VCP marker on it, so that's something the driver can see. Now, as multiple cars go through there, they get knocked down, and the driver no longer sees VCPs, and the GPS is the only thing that houses that. So if the navigator or co-driver is watching the course and not watching, say, the GPS at that point, very easy to miss them. It's very easy to miss them. You have to be within 100 feet or something like that of one.
I think it's 60 either side, something like that.
So, I mean, that's not very far. And fortunately, Skylar, I mean, I don't know how he does it. I give him mad props for doing it, but there'll be sections where he doesn't look at the course. He stares. He doesn't get motion sickness, thank God. He stares at that GPS and doesn't look up. So he knows knows exactly if we're missing something or not, and he'll tell me. So that's a big co-driver's deal right there, is making sure that we hit the VCPs.
So you learned that you won on your trip back home. Then how do you celebrate?
Well, I think most of the crew cracked beers while I drove us home, and they got to celebrate a little bit more than I did. But as soon as we got to Yuma, I took them all to Hooters, and we celebrated at Hooters, and
nice.
We had some beers there and had a good time, and then, you know, it was just a good time. Everybody, sure, the morale home from about halfway to Tecate made the border wait a little bit better, because nobody enjoys the border wait.
I think our guys were 12 hours coming back.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, we went through Mexicali, so we cut some time off.
You may have won the race, but you got a lot of people worrying about that spare tire. Did the spare tire make it?
It didn't. Somebody's got it out there, and it was a brand new tire and wheel, so somebody's looking pretty fresh out there with one Tensor tire method race wheel. But, you know, I was hoping it was going to stay there. I should have found like zip tied in, but no, it's somewhere out there between race mile 400 and 466, I'll tell you that.
Well, lucky they don't penalize you in Mexico for that one.
Well,
Best in Desert, you'll get one.
Not if the tire's full of air. You only get penalized Best Desert if your tire is flat.
Oh, and you leave it flat,
So if you discard
really?
it, yes.
Oh, awesome.
Now, if your tire's full of air, Best in Desert will allow you to understand there was an issue. It could have flown off. Strap could have broke. But now, if you discard your tire in Best in the Desert because it was flat and you didn't want to re-strap it in,
Busted.
you will get you'll get trouble.
Yeah.
So they understand accidents happen. Now, throwing your tire out because it's quicker and it doesn't cost you much. A tire's cheap compared to losing a race.
Right.
Then you get in trouble. So yes, mine was full of air. Somebody's got a brand new tire and wheel assembly. But at that point, to me, I wasn't figuring out a way to get it home.
Someone's got that thing bolted to the front end of a Kia Sorento.
Yes.
One.
Yes,
tire.
yes, one, or Volkswagen Bug, or whatever it is.
Steve, what do you got?
I do have a question for Brandon. You say you run a four-wheel drive all the time, and Justin, this is not a shot at you. You always lose the front diff. What do you do differently to not lose the front diff? Because you run a four-wheel drive all the time.
I'm gonna pop out one thing.
And then that's not like an angry.
No.
I feel like bad.
I'm gonna say one thing beforehand, and that is that the diff on an X3 is a little bit more. It's
Fragile.
weaker and more fragile than a Turbo S or XP Pro style front diff.
Yes. I used to struggle with front diffs before the Turbo S, Pro XP, RS1 front diff came out.
Yeah.
They obviously addressed an issue that they had, and Polaris upgraded their differential, and now I have. To be honest, I've never had a differential fail in this car or any of my other race cars since we've gone to that diff. It's not as fragile as the Can-Am X3. It's something that Polaris has built that's a little bit better than the Can-Am right there. There's no doubt. I mean, they all have advantages and disadvantages to every machine, and that's the great thing is we have a great battle between these manufacturers, and it's cool to see that that they battle so well together. I mean, some have weaknesses, some have strengths. That's definitely one of the Polaris' strengths is that front diff.
Our viewers don't miss a thing here. They say, Matt Fergie, Turbo S diffs are really strong, but the steering rack mount is not.
Yeah, well, don't worry. I will be upgrading that, so we will not be worrying about that much
Chase
longer.
Mitch has got something for it too.
Brandon, how about any tips or tricks for running cooler belt temps for the guys out there?
Ooh, cooler. Well,
Loaded question.
I mean, there's a lot of experience. I do have a belt temp gauge, and it's literally right in front of my steering wheel. It's the only gauge I personally watch. The co-driver navigator actually watches every other gauge. The one gauge I have is the belt temp gauge. It's just a Razorback gauge. It's mounted right in front, so I can glance down. I still drive off my belt temps. I can't just hold to the floor. I don't just get wide open spots and just get to hold it to the floor for hours. It's just inevitable that they will break. Now, there are some certain things. Clutching is an important part of keeping your belt temps cool.
Clutch tuning is almost everything, I think, in that. How much time do you put into your clutch tuning just for belt temps?
You know, I've had to learn which helix, springs, weights, and like I was saying, I change my clutching for every single race. It's never a specific setting that I get to go to every race and get to run it. I'm always constantly, and you know what, I have to get out a grinder, and I change my weights with a grinder. I've got a gram scale. If anybody follows me, I usually show it. I'm not showing what my weight is, but I've got a gram scale out, and I constantly am grinding different weights down and putting them on the scale, getting them where I want them for the race I'm going to, because somebody may not manufacture the weight I need. I think that's a super big part of it, and driving off your belt temps. I mean, I watch them, I back off if they get hot. Down on the coast, I was able to go faster. The ambient air temperature was cold. We've got Vegas to Reno coming up in a month, and that's always a brutal.
Hot, over 100, high altitude, big problem.
Yep, uphill sections, silt.
You're gonna have overheating, and you're gonna have belt temp.
Yep, and it's just something I have to. We all deal with it though. So knowing in my head that I'm not the only one dealing with the engine temps and the belt temps, I know that everybody else is doing it as well.
Yeah. Steve.
Skylar said you were sick. What were you sick with? You hungover?
It definitely wasn't the brown bottle flu, I'll tell you that. We did go out the first night we were there for a little bit, but man, I woke up Thursday morning, and I don't get this very often, but I woke up about 4:30 a.m. puking, diarrhea, classic signs of food poisoning. I wish I could blame it on a hangover, but my head was not pounding, and I am one of the worst hungover guys ever. My head pounds.
That's it's called shuking.
Oh, is that?
Yes, or a Mexican rainbird.
Oh, yeah, well, I had that.
Yeah, you not had no.
This is the first time I've ever had that kind of symptoms.
Oh, okay. No, I'm not going to do the rainbird. No, there's a visual there. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, so that was something that I've never had to deal with, and we were planning on doing some pre-running that morning, and Skylar already went through it. That we started a little bit later. Oh, I actually forgot. I forgot something. So that was our first pre-running issue. I didn't get to go pre-running early that morning, so we got to do race mile 100 to 105. The next day, and I don't even get to blame this on anybody but myself, but we loaded up to go do 380 to finish, or 380 to where they made us stop pre-running, which is right before 30. So I wanted to see that side of the race for a little bit, and so we loaded up the pre-runner, loaded up everything, took a chase truck all the way down. We get down there, I go to climb in the race car, or the pre-runner. I go, "Where's the key at, everybody?" And nobody had the key, unfortunately. I left the key in the hotel room. I took the key out the night before, put it in the hotel room, and I did not grab it when we went out there. So we're sitting at race mile 300, which is a couple-hour drive south of Ensenada. Last thing I want to do is drive all the way back up there, lose out on our pre-running, and probably not get to go all the way back down again. So I unbolted the key, or the ignition switch out of there, and I took a grinder, I ground down each side of it so that the lock pins popped out of the cylinder, and we tried hot wiring. We tried hot wiring at first. There's not enough. There's 5 wires going to it. I got accessory, I got power out of it. I could not get it to crank, so I'm not going to hurt the car's wiring to do this. So yeah, I got all the pins out of the lock cylinder, and I was able to use a screwdriver. So we actually went pre-running with a screwdriver, and that's how we got our pre-running done on Friday.
Oh, when in Mexico?
Yeah.
And somebody curious, how many belts do you keep on your car?
I keep 2 belts on the car, and I've never had to use one on this race car.
Awesome. Do you guys bring a pressure washer with you on the chase truck to wash the silt off the car after the race?
No.
Silt doesn't stick.
There was a couple mud sections. My car is not anywhere near as clean as Justin. I'm gonna actually, haven't even picked it up yet. It's down in Phoenix. I live in Prescott. I had to have a different truck bring it down here, so I'm actually gonna pick it up here just a little bit, take it home. I'll send some pictures of what it looks like. It looks dirty, and there's not a clean spot on it, actually.
Mud. There was not any water anywhere in this whole race except for 2 river crossings, but there's mud on everyone's car, because as you go through some of the towns, the locals will flood the street in advance just so you have to drive through the mud for them.
Yes, yeah. It's not because they
That
want.
was at 225 where you got muddy.
Wherever the mud is, I have no idea. He knows the numbers, but obviously he drives slower and he can see the numbers.
That clearly is true.
On the other hand, I can't really pay attention to that. But yes, he was 100% correct about being water. They want to see something. So you're in the middle of nowhere in a small town, and there's a huge mud puddle right before a gate. See, I remember landmarks, not numbers. There's a gate you have to go through. You can't go around the mud puddle because you got to neck down into this little gate section, and just mud. I mean, and you don't want to go slow. So I mean, the water went over, and there's mud everywhere. So, but yes, it's not very silty at all. It's completely covered in mud.
There's no time to their question about having a pressure washer. There's no time in a race to do that. No way. You're just going to deal with it. End of story. Keep going as fast as you can.